we need to be accountable, obviously, and we need to be pros, and we need to make every day worth it, and obviously follow the standard that got us buzzing at the end of last year. If not, we're going to be like, we're going to keep being up and down.
Welcome back to the show for part 2 here. Let's go deeper into the Celtics issues. So first, let's take a look at what they're doing well. Let's go to the Grandstand play of the game. Grandstand sports highlights from fans in the stands. On the new sports app Grandstand, you can share your own Celtics highlights and watch other fans' videos straight from the crowd. So download Grandstand at the App Store or at grandstand.com. So let's take a look at this play from Isaiah Thomas. In the first half, Isaiah was getting to the rim at will. It was great to see that no matter what kind of move he put out there, he was able to kind of get that finger roll off. And they were actually looking good. And it was a tight game in that first half. And then in the second half, things just fell apart. And even though they had that 12-2 run in the early fourth quarter, that fell apart pretty quickly. They made another run late in the game. That kind of fell apart pretty quickly. This is a team that is going on really short spurts against a lot of teams that really are not as good as them, regardless of what Evan Turner says about whether they're qualified to criticize the teams that are below them in the standings. But there seems to be a clear disconnect within the team that, obviously part of the problem is that a lot of the plays that are going pretty well, they're missing the shots because they're just not that good of a shooting team. But there seems to be an ebb and flow that is kind of, over the course of a season it happens, but it's happening within games so frequently.
Yeah, the big thing with this team is effort. When they play really well, when they're playing hard, they can beat teams. They can beat the Thunder. They can hang with the Spurs. They can hang with the Warriors. So when you don't have kind of that star player and you rely a lot on effort, it can go both ways. We saw again tonight for majority of the game, it kind of looked like they were in slow motion, and then they turn it on and they get back into the game, and then they fall back again. So when the offense isn't there and they can rely on their hustle and their effort to stay in games, that's good. That's a good thing, but that always hasn't been the case.
You're not going to win in the end with being that kind of team. You got to have skill.
Yeah. This isn't college basketball; it's an NBA game, so you need to,
You should tell us to the college basketball coach.
Yeah.
But either way, they have. I think they have a pretty good system, and we're not. It's been a couple bad games.
Right.
A couple weeks ago we were talking about how good they are. So obviously we don't want to sound like we're a broken record reversing itself here, but their system's fine. I think everybody that covers the team has been talking about how they're shooting. At this point, I think we can establish that they're just not a good shooting team.
No.
They don't have anyone on the team that is really a consistent shooter. And while that's going to be the main reason for inconsistency, on the nights where they're not shooting well, they're half of the time are making up for it with effort, half of the time aren't. This was one of those halves where they weren't making up for it. The team that's a top 5 team in the playoffs, every single night that they're shooting 42%, they're making up for it with really good defense, with good passing, making good plays on 50-50 balls, stuff like that. But the Celtics just aren't doing that right now.
Yeah, it's shooting. Obviously, it's something that you can't obviously control. Sometimes you're hot, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you have good nights, sometimes you don't. Especially with Thomas, he's been pretty streaky, especially from 3-point range. But you can control your effort. You can control, how much effort you put out there, the hustle and all that. So I think that's, if they can kind of establish that, Stevens in his actually it was Turner. Turner was talking about the kind of the culture of the team, and Stevens said that maybe he thought the culture slipped a little bit. So I guess maybe if they establish that going forward and set the bar for where they want to play, then that could make up for, regardless of whether they have a good shooting night or not.
Sure. Well, the thing is, when Turner said that about what Stevens was saying about the culture, he then said that they're pros and they need to hold themselves accountable, and that you can't blame the coach. And I don't think anybody wants to blame the coach on this team. I think David Lee would be the only one, and Tyler Zeller would be the only ones annoyed with their role, although Tyler Zeller really hasn't made a peep so far. Right. David Lee's made a little bit of a hiccup so far. But these guys generally have never really wavered in their support and admiration for Brad.
Yeah.
And they've generally have always kind of stood behind the principles that the team is run on, stood behind kind of the general kind of looseness of the system and the fact that they're not running a ton of targeted plays to get ISO and stuff like that. And I think Isaiah is the only guy really on the team that you could do that with.
Yeah.
And it works half the time.
Yeah.
He's a pretty good, statistically, he's one of the top efficient guys as pick and roll ball, or ISO ball handlers in the league. But they're relying on a fluid system. And when the fluid system isn't working in every single, both at the front of the train and the back of the train, it's not working. And these guys have a lot of issues with really, I'd say it's the front of the train where just like the execution at the end of the play, it just falls flat in its face half the time. And you saw in the second half of the fourth quarter in this Nets game here, where like they would make a bunch of nice cuts and motion stuff and stuff like that, and then the shot would be like a turnaround fadeaway for Jonas Jerebko in the corner or something like that. Or they got like one where they got Kelly Olynyk that shot for the corner three, but he stepped out of bounds. Stuff, little things like that, where like in the end they just kind of screw up on the execution part at the end.
Yeah, I think the thing that this game kind of shows is, so they need everyone involved. They need all the pieces of the system to kind of be working in harmony with each other. And so Avery Bradley goes out in the first half, in the second quarter. That's one piece that's out, and then things kind of falter from there. So, and then Marcus Smart obviously has just returned from his injury. So when you have guys who aren't playing, who aren't on the floor. And that kind of screws things up. I guess there's not a whole lot of margin for error when you have that kind of that system where you're relying on everyone. You need everyone to buy in. You can't just throw the ball to Paul Pierce and clear everyone out and hope he scores.
Or Joe Johnson, as we saw tonight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us here from the Garden. We're going to see you again on Wednesday. The Celtics get their chance to try to get some revenge, I guess. Can you have a revenge game against the third worst team in basketball?
Yeah.
Well, they'll try to get some revenge against the Nets on Monday night. I'll be there covering in Brooklyn. Won't be doing a Garden report, though, so I don't have the whole team with me. But on Wednesday, we'll be back with the full crew. It'll be our producer, Kyle George's last game, so send him some good wishes. So for Darren, for Jeremy behind the camera, I am Jared. Good night.
Got to reassess things. I've got to do a better job. I've got to hold guys accountable at a better level, and hey, we're not playing as well as we think we are. So we've got to be better.
Yes, I'm the boss.